What to do when you encounter a hostile drunk person in public who all of a sudden has it out for you. We're going to talk about that in this video. Stick around. You may be the type of person who minds their own business, who's never looking for trouble. You're never in the wrong places. You're just going about your day-to-day life. Well, even someone like you is not above this issue. I know from personal experience. I've had to avoid a few violent altercations with drunk individuals. Some when I was younger and at the wrong place at the wrong time, but even in my adult life going about my day-to-day business. You got different kinds of drunks in this world, but there's a breed of them out there that get angry and hostile when they're drinking, and it only takes one thing to set them off, and then they've got it out for everybody. Some of you know this story already, but a couple of years ago I stopped at a gas station, and what I thought was a husband and his wife arguing actually turned out to be just a drunk guy yelling at anybody and arguing with anybody who would entertain him. It was an awkward situation because we really needed to get gas, and we had 2 or 3 different people fueling up at that time. So what I decided to do was just kind of stand guard and keep an eye on him without making contact with him or getting into any kind of verbal interaction with him. As soon as he saw me, he looked at me and said, "You gonna shoot me, tough guy?" And I didn't say a word to him. I just kept going and kept an eye on him without directly like staring at him the whole time. And man, he's just cussing up a storm, yelling all kinds of stuff at me the whole time. I wasn't really paying attention to the words. I was just paying attention to him. Which leads me to my first point. My friend, you can't get caught up in words with these people. They're not thinking clearly. Be more concerned with their actions. Learn the art of ignoring them, but yet paying attention to them at the same time. A few years back before this encounter, I was at a gas station and there was a drunk guy walking around in the parking lot just talking to everybody. He said some things to me, but he was a good ways off, and I just ignored him. I just finished up my transaction and got out of there. Yet I was watching him. So ignore them on a social level, but be aware of what they're doing. I know for a fact this dude was willing to fight me because he ended up having to fight the cops who showed up a little bit after this interaction. At one point he started getting too close to me, and I just cut my eyes over at him, just let him know that I saw him, and kind of turned back this way again. He backed off. He quit coming forward when I looked at him. So he stopped moving forward, but he kept running his mouth. Well, once the first person that was traveling with us got fueled up, they safely got back in their car, and I went over to the next person to hang with them. And this guy knew what I was doing. He knew that I was on to him and that I was operating as a protector. And he came over there and started harassing us where we were. He got a little too close, and that's when my posture became very threatening. I looked at him and said, "All right, you need to get back. You need to step back." He's like, "Come on, come on." I said, "Step back, step back." I just stood my ground. And he kind of kept backing up little by little. His eyes were blinking a lot like this. I just kept warning him to step back. I was standing my ground and I was willing to act, but he did not come into the space where I felt like I needed to act. He kept slowly backing down. He eventually walked away from me. Well, when he walked away, he walked down the parking lot, and that's when the cops showed up. Apparently the store owner called the cops on him because after the altercation was over, the store owner came out to check with me to make sure everything was okay. If you're in an environment where a hostile drunk has somehow or another zeroed in on you, get away if you can. Move away from the premises if you can. Now, a lot of people came along and said, "Why did you go to that gas station?" Well, first of all, there wasn't many gas stations around, and one of the people we were traveling with had let himself get so low and he didn't realize it. So we needed to stand our ground and get fuel. It's not like we had a million to choose from. The mistake was that he wasn't fueled up to begin with. When you're traveling, you might want to go ahead and fuel up when you know you can. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're calling the head guy in the caravan saying, "Oops, forgot to fuel up." So unfortunately, I was in a situation where I had to stand my ground. But if you don't have to be where you are and you can move away from the situation, get out of there. We've already established that words and pride and ego don't matter. We've eliminated that. The second thing is maybe we can eliminate the threat by just getting out of there. If you can't get out of there for some reason and the drunk is persistent, you're eventually going to have to warn them. You're going to have to stand your ground and warn them. You're going to have to be firm, be very firm. I had several young people with me on this trip, and my niece came up to me afterwards and she said, when we were in that situation, I wasn't worried. She said, your level of authority made me feel safe. You were very authoritative with him, and that's why he didn't come forward. She said, I wasn't even worried. You have to be bold and clear with people in warning them if you think that you may end up having to take action against them. It's better to stand them down first. Now, one of the young guys that was with us was trying to warn the drunk. He said to the drunk, he said, this guy's gonna hurt you. Don't come forward, he's gonna hurt you. He was saying that the whole time, and I really didn't want him egging it on. Sometimes that can make them come forward. He's like, dude, don't get yourself hurt. And the guy thankfully walked away. You have to have authority when you're dealing with people like this. You've got to stop them dead in their tracks, and they've got to be able to look in your eyes and see that you mean business. Now, if they're not willing to stop at that point, you're going to have to take action against these people based on your own threat assessment. Sometimes a drunk just needs a good face full of pepper spray. But if he reaches in his pocket and pulls out a blade, then we've got a different situation. Had he done that, I would have pulled out what I was carrying, and that was a Glock 43X. Remember the acronym ATM, ask, tell, make. So at first it's, sir, could you step back? That's asking. If he doesn't honor it, sir, step back, get back. That's telling him. And if he's not willing to honor that, you got to make him. You got to put something on him. Thankfully, he chose to disengage. He took heed to the warning, he walked away, and within a minute, he was being tackled by the deputies. Listen, drunks can come up to you on the street. Drunks can approach you at gas stations. Drunks can approach you outside of a restaurant bar. Sometimes they'll call you out if they think you're a threat. I'm 100% convinced that that guy called me out that day because he looked at a guy who was aware and a guy who looked like he could be a threat, because I was tuned into what was going on, but I wasn't getting involved in it. If you can avoid being in places where these people are, then by all means do it. But my point is that you can run into these people in the regular flow of life. But if you're hanging out at parties and you're hanging out at bars, you can expect to run into these people. You're pretty much going and hanging out in the living room with them. I won't tell you where to spend your time, but I will tell you to be aware of where you spend your time. With the exception of the gas station scenario I just told you about, I've been able to get away from these types of people. The moment that I sense this is going on or that somebody's in this vicinity, I'm out, man. I've been able to avoid this stuff almost completely for the most part, except for that situation. The most common takeaways that I can conclude this video with is, yes, we have to be mindful where we are. We really do. Secondly, we have to be mindful of what's going on around us and the behavior of people around us. If somehow or another we get entangled or in somebody's radar, the last thing we need to do is engage with these people verbally on a stupid level, going back and forth with insults. We don't need to get involved in that. We don't need to get involved in their drama. The only time we need to open up our mouths is if we're warning them to stay back, because you can't let these people get in your face. Absolutely never let anybody get close enough to touch you. You are warning them. You are keeping them out of that space. And if they are not willing to stay out of that space, you got to act. In most cases, you can ignore them and move on. That's your greatest weapon against them. But I wanted to make this video because sometimes it can get more complicated than that. Do you have a similar story to mine? I'd love to hear it. Take care.